Hey guys, welcome to 12 Tone. Today we're going to talk about diminished 7th modulations. If you haven't seen our first video on diminished 7th chords, here it is, you're going to need it. Anyway, after we posted that video, someone asked if these each work in so many keys, wouldn't they be great for pivot chord modulation? And the answer is so yes. This is legitimately one of my favorite music theory concepts ever and something I've been looking forward to talking about since we launched. I'm gonna take this a little slower than normal because when I first saw this it blew my mind, but trust me, it's worth the ride. Let's say we're playing in C and we bust out our primary diminished 7th chord B diminished 7. As we know, this wants to resolve up a half step back to C. But diminished 7ths are symmetrical and each of them is enharmonic to a bunch of others. So B diminished 7 is also D diminished 7, which wants to resolve up a half step to E flat. And it's F diminished 7, which wants to go to G flat. It's also G sharp diminished 7, which wants to resolve to A. So any diminished 7th chord can resolve to the one chord in 4 different keys, but that's just primary dominant function. What about secondary dominant function? What if it didn't resolve to the 1? What if it went to another harmonically important chord instead, like the 5? Let's take a look. B diminished 7 still resolves to C, which is the 5 chord in F. D diminished 7 goes to E flat, the 5 in A flat. F diminished 7 goes to G flat and harmonic to F sharp, the 5 in B. And if it's G sharp diminished 7, it resolves to A, the 5 chord in D. This is already a lot of options, but there's one more super important functional chord, the 4. We can call it a 7 diminished 7 of 4 and resolve to a 4-5-1. With B diminished 7, we go to C, which sets up a D7 that resolves to G. Similarly, E flat is the 4 of B flat, G flat is the 4 of D flat, and A is the 4 of E. And hold on, that's all 12 keys. Any diminished 7th chord can effectively pivot into any key regardless of modality. That's insane, but we're still not done. Cause let's be honest, 4-5-1 takes forever. Wouldn't it be great if we could shorten it? I think it would, and that's where we bring in our last trick, the +2 and +6 diminished 7s. These, if you'll recall, are where a diminished 7th resolves to a chord based on one of its chord tones. If you don't remember it, rewatch the end of our last video. So with B diminished 7 as the +2, that would resolve to A flat. D diminished 7 would go to B, F diminished 7 would go to D, and G sharp diminished 7 would resolve to F. Which is nice, but that doesn't solve our 4 chord problem. For that, we need the +6 diminished 7. If that's B diminished 7, then it goes to A flat 7, which resolves to D flat. If it's D diminished 7, it goes to B7, which resolves to E. F diminished 7 goes to D7, goes to G, and G sharp diminished 7 goes to F7, goes to B flat. And that's it. With that, we know that any diminished 7 chord can pivot to any key it wants, resolving to either the 1 or the 5 chord, regardless of modality. If that doesn't blow your mind at least a little bit, then I guess I haven't done my job. But all this flexibility does come at a cost. You have to actually use a diminished 7th chord, and they have a very specific sound. Yeah, that one. It's harsh, rough, and may not sound good in a more consonant piece. There's also the problem that pivot modulations base their smooth transitions on the ear properly interpreting chords in multiple contexts, and since the diminished 7th chord isn't really diatonic to normal scales, your listener may not be able to do that. The resolution helps establish it in the target key, but if they weren't expecting it in the original key, then it'll likely just sound abrupt. Fortunately, the fix for this is simple. Just use it a couple times in the original key before you use it to pivot. That lets the listener hear the expected resolution, which trains them to accept the chord in this key, and once you have that, you can go wherever you like. The dissonance can still be a little problematic, but if you don't sit on it very long, it should be okay, and in exchange you get a beautiful skeleton key for modulation. There's probably a pun in there somewhere. And that's diminished 7th chords. Hopefully you found this at least a fraction as fascinating as I do. If you want to know more, you can try the exercises, join our mailing list for scans of all our episodes, and keep on rockin'.